a happy Monday to you guys. It's a two-man crew tonight. It's me and Brandon. I feel like I have not been on this show in like a month. And I feel like Plug Talk Sports is becoming a Brandon and Jonka thing. Like you guys are running the show right now, holding down the fort.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I hosted at least two shows while you were gone, and I mean, we had a huge episode last one of like reviewing all the MLS jerseys, man. But I mean, trust me, we've been
I
keeping in
enjoyed
good
it.
hands till you got here.
I enjoyed it. I saw that episode. I watched back through it. I really enjoyed it. You guys have been doing a phenomenal job, and I can't thank you guys. And you guys, people are loving it, so it's a good thing. But yeah, welcome back. I'm here. Another Monday. I was out last week, as many of you know. I took my broadcast kids from Columbus over across the country to Los Angeles to compete for a national title out of 200 schools, and we ended up finishing second place in the nation. Which
Wow.
I'm not gonna lie, at first I was like, man, I really wanted that first place. But then you start thinking about it, and it's like, out of 200 schools, you play second. Like that's not anything to hang your head down about. So, um, very happy for the kids. I'm very exhausted. I'll tell you that because it was 5 days of like 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night, just nonstop for the 5 straight days. So I'm pretty tired right now. I'm not gonna lie, and I have a newfound respect for teachers because I'll tell you, dealing with kids is not easy.
No, it's not. It's not at all. But hey, someone has to teach the next generation, though. You know.
That's true. That's true. Someone's got to take one for the team. Um, so tonight's first topic, unfortunately, it's stuff that happens in the world. It correlates with sports, but it's just a tragic time right now. Obviously, I would hope everyone knows, but it's been now day 6. Russia had decided to invade Ukraine. Um, it's just unbelievable, especially the sights and the scenes that we're getting out of social media, um, of what's going on. A lot of people have died. The Ukrainians, I tell you what, like, it's just all around the world, the support the Ukrainian people are getting from around the world. These people have brilliantly defended their country. This is a David and a Goliath story because Ukraine is a little hole compared to, I believe they said it was the size of Texas. But even that, like the size of Texas compared to the massive country that Russia is and the massive military that they have, and a military that compares up to the United States' military, you would figure that Russia would go in there in at least 2-3 days and have that conquered. But it's now day 6, and they haven't been able to conquer the capital of Kiev. Uh, I have no words with the way everything is going. It's just a dark time, and then you think, yeah, a lot of sanctions have been put on Russia, and I think it only makes it worse because obviously President Putin sees those sanctions as a threat, and then um, you got them kind of losing the war. They haven't been able to conquer anything in the country, so that kind of sends him over the edge and kind of gets him to thinking that I have to get the job done by any means necessary, which means that he wants to do it by a catastrophic way, which means mass damage and casualties. I mean, he put his. I sent it to you the other day, Brandon. I think it was yesterday. He put uh, his nuclear unit on combat readiness.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's absolutely insane. And then we go to the sports. The sports side of it. It is absolutely insane. I mean, you look at soccer. FIFA just came out today. They banned Russia from the World Cup. The UEFA Champions League final was going to be held in St. Petersburg, Russia. It's moved to the Stade de France in Paris. You have the German Bundesliga team Schalke, who had Gazprom, which is an oil company from Russia, as their sponsor in their jersey. They took the sponsor off of the jersey. Um, then you have just Russian athletes who don't want to be any part of it at all, and they kind of feel ashamed. And there was a Russian tennis player who wrote on with a Sharpie on a camera. I'm not sure if you saw it, but he wrote with a Sharpie on a camera lens, and he put "No war." Um, It's incredible, and especially Olympics as well. Olympics has put sanctions against Russia as well. So a lot of sports taking a stand against the country of Russia.
Oh yeah, and especially from the Olympics because they actually already did put a couple of limitations to Russian sports, being now the ROC instead of representing Russia because
Yeah,
before they were cheating with all the drug problems. But I mean, from looking at this on the sports side, though, it really does affect a lot of the athletes that are Russian because obviously, I mean, even Ovechkin in the NHL, all the way to what you said before, a tennis player, which I believe was in the Australian Open,
yep,
all these guys on stage are putting out their voice, which is being very like, a vocal stand that a lot of people in Russia don't have, especially as professional athletes. So,
hmm,
I mean, obviously, this is a huge blow for the Russian players who, with the World Cup coming up now, cannot even consider of competing in it. And then with, as you say before, with Ukraine 6 days standing strong. I mean, Ukrainian support, especially around sports in soccer overseas, has been phenomenal to see.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Manchester, I saw them with another team, which I unfortunately don't remember at the time, but they were in unity prior
I
of the
was
game for Ukraine.
Watford, I think it was Manchester United against Watford.
Yes, Wofford, yes, thank you. But basically, I mean, to see that type of unity prior of the game and, knowing that a player, even though it's just one specific player with a Ukrainian background, has the support of thousands across the league and thousands in that building and just an international, fan base supporting him, not just because he's on the club, but because of his, situation is huge. I mean, I remember, I believe the center's name was Alex Len, and this was
Yeah,
in the NBA, and he actually was, probably only about a handful of Ukrainian players in the NBA currently today, and the people show support. People show support in him and the organization. So, as much as it is unfortunate to see a situation like this, such as a war where you have, Russia, which a lot of people argue has the economy as Canada, but at the same time, not the military power as Canada, going against a country like Ukraine, which I have to say, I don't know if you've seen this yet, Daniel, but the Ukrainian president, I can't say his name correctly, which I wish I could.
Voldemort Zelensky.
Yes, Zelensky. He has been so far
Yeah,
probably the biggest supporter of his army, his troops, and the people of Ukraine, still over there in the country, talking about more ammunition instead of being rescued away from other countries such as the United States or whatever. I actually heard about Lithuania also giving out ammunition to the Ukrainians, but of course, keeping on the sports side of things, I mean, it's just great to see that there is international support for the country.
yeah, and definitely, I think the reason why they're at today, day six, holding strong, is because of the leadership of President Zelensky to just be like, we'll see a lot of presidents be like, okay, I'm going to my bunker now, and I'll run things and call the shots from my bunker. But this guy literally said, hand me an AR-15, give me some ammunition and a helmet, and I'm going out there with you guys, and I'm holding down the fort with you guys. Uh, and that's amazing. And there was a picture on Twitter as well that I saw, a team that was in the Champions League this year, Shakhtar Donetsk.
Hmm.
The entire team, it's not the entire team is not made of Ukrainians. Obviously, there's Ukrainians on the team, but there's Brazilians on the team and stuff like that. The entire squad got guns and dressed in camo and all together as a club are fighting in the war. And
Really?
that is insane to me. They posted a picture from the club's official Twitter account, and it was all of them in a room with weapons and camouflage put on. The Brazilians together, the Ukrainians together as a club, just defending Ukraine. Um, it's just the support for them has been phenomenal, and hopefully that this de-escalates. Obviously, at the moment, it doesn't seem like it's going that way. It's scary to say that we could be at the brink of a world war. Um, but I just hope the best for the Ukrainians, and especially you talk about Brandon. You brought up the Russian athletes. I kind of feel sorry for them as well because it's not their it's not the Russian people's fault
Right.
that their leader and their government has decided to take such actions. It's not their fault. So they're being robbed of a lot of stuff, not only in sports, but Disney just announced that they're no longer going to play their movies in Russia. I mean, airlines, you're not flying in or out of Russia. The banks have been sanctioned. So these pretty much these people, these Russian people, have been isolated from the rest of the world and are kind of stuck within their own country, not because of them, but because of their leaders and their sports as well, separated from the rest of the world because of their deranged leader that they have. So I feel for them as well, not only the Ukrainian people.
No, yeah, of course. And even though, as we did mention a lot of things in sports, and this is a sports podcast, but I mean, we have to remind you the sports aspect of it is probably the smallest
Yeah.
consequence of this war that's going on right now. So the people, I mean, of course, we're always thinking about the Ukrainian people, but for the Russians out there who say no to war, we thank you for at least, showing your mind out there against this authoritarian Putin. But I mean, hopefully things turn out for the best for the Ukrainians, fighting for independence. But I mean, only time will tell.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about that topic, there's many of various of organizations that you can do to help. I posted something on my Instagram. There's UNICEF that's helping because this is a humanitarian crisis at this point with a lot of people trying to flee Ukraine and hopping into Romania and Poland and Lithuania. There's UNICEF trying to help the children of Ukraine. There's a whole lot of other organizations that you can look up and you can find that are helping not only the children but women and just the adults in general with this whole humanitarian crisis. So I urge you guys, if you guys can go and donate and try to give something to help out these people, please. I mean, you can only just imagine yourself, in your home country being invaded and being forced out of your home and leave everything behind and go to somewhere that you don't know, a land that you don't know, and be misplaced. So if anything, you guys can do that. That'd be very extremely helpful to the Ukrainian people, and I think that they will very much appreciate it. But going to a lighter note, we're gonna get into some comments that I thought was quite funny about J.R. Smith, um,
Mm,
who is
yeah,
back in college now, by the way, playing golf. Um,
yeah. He's
not
been
in the
doing it for
NBA.
he's been doing about a year now, I believe, right? And the
Yeah,
college, yeah,
I thought it was really random.
I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, because I like the move from JR, though, still being competitive even after his NBA years. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, he's been to the NBA in China, but what is it like? He's been to a couple of tournaments. Actually, he's been successful.
yeah. I just thought it was random, like out of nowhere. Like, you know what? I want to go back to college and play golf. Like out of nowhere. I thought it was really random. But anyways, his comment, and he was saying it not only for NBA players, but for a majority of athletes. He was saying that they make so much money, but a lot of that money that athletes make are thrown at strip clubs and strippers instead of thrown back into their own communities. Brandon, I can go on a whole spiel about this just because of having worked in sports, having been around athletes and inside locker rooms. You know, I think a lot of athletes, and this is not only a problem with money, but it comes with a problem with, fame, women, cars. They make all this money and they start to put it in the wrong reasons.
Mm.
Um, you see a lot of, for example, boxers. I mean, look at Evander Holyfield. I mean, had so much money and success from his boxing career, but then spent it on women, cars, drugs, and then now he's living in a 4x4 box in Fort Lauderdale because he ran out of money. So that's why now he's going back to fight like Logan Paul and like Tyson and Jake Paul because he really needs the money.
Yeah, just
Um,
anybody you can find.
exactly. Uh, but I think there is an issue with athletes when they get this sort of fame or power that they feel entitled to things. Um, whether that's relationships or just cars and all this sort of stuff, they feel entitled to these things and they kind of forget where they came from or the people who helped them get there and just start spending it on like J.R. Smith said, strippers and strip clubs that a lot of these guys say like, oh, I want to be a role model for the younger generation and just to be an inspiration for the younger generation. Well, how do you think the younger generation is going to feel? Imagine yourself. I mean, I would have been hurt as a boy in middle school if I looked up to somebody and he's out there getting half crossfaded at a strip club throwing money at strippers. I mean, I would feel hurt if that was somebody I was trying to look up to. So I definitely think there's some sort of issue. And I mean, I've heard it. I've heard it around locker rooms and stuff like that. Players just talking about this sort of stuff.
No, yeah. I mean, it's not. I mean, this has been going on for probably ever since there's been an athletic league.
Yeah,
I mean, you probably look back at like, times when Joe Namath probably went to like a strip club with a fur coat and just party all night in New York. But for the quote itself, we rather go throw 60,000 in a strip club than go feed 2,500 people in the hood. I mean, there was actually a conversation, I think, and I forgot the podcast it was on, but it's a
yeah,
podcast that has Brandon Marshall, Chad Ochocinco, if you don't know, a
yeah,
Florida native. These two went at each other because one was basing on the idea that bring back to the community that you were raised from, or just in general a community, or it's your money, you decide whatever you want from it. And this is where this quote really feels that I just adds on to that conversation. you know sure, athletes will probably rather go spend it at a strip club, but then again, it is their money at the same time.
that's
Now, for
true.
me personally, I do believe that it's huge that you go out there to a community and help out, either that'll be your own community or the community that, let's say, an athlete is currently on a team for. Like, let's say DeAndre Hopkins is in Texas, he'll be going to the community in Texas. Or how Kenny Stills was with the Miami Dolphins, and then he kept his programs going when he moved around teams. But honestly, I don't know, man. I don't know, because what you said before, what does it mean as a role model standpoint? I mean, James Harden probably goes to a strip club, and it's all over every social media platform you
Yeah,
see. Twitter, Instagram, you'll either see pictures of him in the strip club, either the people talking about it in a joking manner, going to the strip club and then dropping 40 the next night on a team, so I do understand the idea that, role models, but at the same time, these are athletes that are, in their 20s and 30s. So they're obviously, if they have the money and the lifestyle, just, go crazy for it. It's your money. I mean, that's the way I see it, at least in my head. But of course, at the same time, it's that, you have to be financially smart. We talked about before with boxers, and, AI is also one that a lot of people go back and forth when it comes to money issues. But I don't know, man. I don't know, because this is an argument that I feel like is going to be talked throughout every single league during every single decade. Because no matter how much money an athletes get, you can't change the athlete. Before they're a player, they're a person.
that's true. That's true. But I feel I'm gonna counter that. I feel you are a person, definitely 100%. But I think when you take on the role not only as an athlete, but you take on the role as a celebrity, you have to know that there's certain things that you are signing on for that will come with it. And when you have a platform such as an athlete, you know, people are always going to be watching you.
Of
And
course.
you have a platform that you can use for good, and a platform that people already maybe look up to you. Um, and I don't know. I personally, if I was a type of athlete like that, I would personally feel disappointed if I knew I was letting down not only kids, but people who believed in me or looked up to me and my platform. And if I knew I was letting them down by my actions, I mean, let's perfect example. I mean, how many kids do you say? How many kids do you hear say I look up to Tristan Thompson?
I,
Not
I don't I don't think I ever heard of that.
not many. I can tell you that, not many. But I mean, look at his actions, man. The guy's in a cheating scandal every other week. Every girl he's been with ends up being pregnant. I mean, it is his money, and he can have 10 kids if he wants.
Yeah,
But at the
that's
end of
true.
the day, those actions have consequences, and people will look at that and be like, wow, like, well, that's not a type of person that I want to aspire to be or look up to. So at the end of the day, they have a platform that they kind of have to monitor. But that's when the publicist comes in. That's when you have a PR person that says, "Hey, bro, stop doing stupid shit and get your act together. It's
No,
hurting
yeah.
your brand."
Yeah, I mean, that's when you gotta have, like, a social media team, a team
Yeah,
that puts on their agencies, but, of course, there's a lot of players out there that do their own. I mean, as I said before, it all depends on the athlete, these are, reality people that are in their 20s or 30s, so
yeah.
they're gonna do what they're gonna do, like, Kevin Durant on Twitter is probably a great example. Because he's one guy and then another guy on two different platforms. On Twitter, he's
Yeah,
something else, couple of burner accounts going back and forth with fans, which is awesome to see. And then on the court, he's respectful with the media, of course, with the generation that is, currently right now and that of the past. Um, but the situation, especially for what JR said, I mean, it's hard. It's a hard scenario
it
to go
is.
to because as an NBA team, you can obviously make like limitations and fines, but I don't even feel like money will be that big. I mean, it's more like a personal moral obligation for these guys.
It's the same thing. I mean, you look at how many people do you know. I mean, that at least I've come into contact with or have seen them say like, "Oh, I'm a huge like I aspire to be like Floyd Mayweather." Like, yeah, they probably aspire to have as much money as him, but like the guy owns his own strip club, and like every weekend you see on his Instagram story, he's got a bunch of girls on him and just like throwing wads of cash at them. Uh, I just haven't to like yeah I'd love to have that lifestyle and have girls all around me. And you hear people say that, but as a person, I don't think I've ever heard people say like, oh yeah, Floyd Mayweather is the type of person that I'd love to be like.
No, yeah. I mean, you'll probably never hear anything like that unless somebody had a path they wanted to choose specifically. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I think it just stands at, as bad as their morals may be as people, these guys are still athletes getting paid millions. So, I mean, say what you got to say. For me, I won't be trying to be like Tristan Thompson in any way,
Oh god,
but
no.
I mean, I can't really, stop him from getting in the news cycle all the time.
Hey, E News guys that has to have stuff to post, right?
No, of
They
course,
gotta.
especially if it's Kardashian related. And I don't even know because I'm not all into that Chloe and stuff, but I mean, come on. I mean, how many times have she gone back to Tristan though? That's what I want to know. What is the decision on that right
You
now?
know, I said the same thing, bro. I'm like, what goes through her mind after the third time to say, I think a relationship with this guy might actually work after the third time. And then he just keeps doing the same thing. I really don't know what goes through her mind or any woman's mind or a guy's mind because there's guys the same way that do the same thing. Girls gone crazy, cheat on him, and he keeps going back to her. I don't know what goes through a person's mind to say that they are mentally capable of continuing to hold a relationship knowing that they already treated. There's no trust there. I personally wouldn't trust the person.
No, I mean, how can you trust the person, especially if people made articles about it? You know what I mean? Like, it's bad if it makes the New York Post and it has like a 10-minute read. You know what I mean? Like that's just history on why you shouldn't be back with this person. So
And talking about it, I was just watching before the show started. I was watching the Heat game. They're playing the Chicago Bulls, and I had no idea that he was on the Bulls. And I saw him at the free throw line. And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" And he was
yeah,
wearing number three. I was like, "Wow!" The Bulls gave Wade's number three to Tristan Thompson. Wow, that's one way to back it up.
no, yeah, the Chicago legend. You can't forget D Wade number 3. I'm hoping one day. I know that Miami has already done it, but I'm hoping one day there's going to be another team that just retires his number just because. Just because the same thing the Miami Heat did with Michael Jordan's number. I just want to see something like another team respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I can agree with that. But you know what, man? Just ending that topic, man. It's just like you said, you have the freedom to do whatever the hell you want. Like if you want a championship, that's fine, man. If you want to drink to your heart's content and freaking pass down and wake up somewhere in some park bench next to some bus stop, and because you won the championship and you're just sleeping with the Larry O'Brien trophy, go ahead, by all means. You deserved it. You won the freaking NBA championship. That took a lot of hard work. But if you're just going on regular season games on a Wednesday night, Brooklyn or excuse me, Philadelphia now is playing Miami, and you got James Harden here, and he just let's say that he just whooped his butt, and he just says, "All right, I'm going to live. We just lost, guys, but I'm going over to live. I'm going to 12, and I'm gonna Club 11, whatever, whatnot. Gonna go get some strippers or whatever. Like what? And yeah, you got Kyrie Irving saying the world's flat. It's a whole mess. Like you said, just people in our age or early 20s and stuff like that, just getting fame and money, not really knowing how to handle it. I guess it comes with time and maturity.
No, yeah, and that's always gonna be. I mean, as I said before, it's gonna be like this is gonna be a conversation that we repeat every single year. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yeah, for
You know.
sure. It's just not a thing that's gonna. I mean, for Christ's sake, Brandon, do you not hear that every time there's an Olympics, they call the Olympic Village a freaking Olympic orgy because
Yeah,
everybody in the village is just having sex with each other?
yeah, making super babies. I guess. I don't know, man. I don't know.
That's just the way it is, apparently, in the sports world. So, man, you had it there. Brandon had nothing. That's it. You had nothing.
But what can you
There you
say?
go. Hey, that's it. That's all you. That's all you can really say, man. Just give him a Kanye shoulder shrug.
Just I don't know, man. I mean, if you're gonna do an Olympic Village, I mean, what other better place than make a super baby? So, but of course, that's a little bit off topic. But it is what it is, though. It is what it is.
I promise you guys, this is not usually what we talk about every week. We don't talk about Kardashians and children having children every week. I promise you, this is an actual sports show. It just happened to go along with the topic.
Yep.
Moving on, we're gonna go into MLS opening weekend.
Yep.
Uh, Let me tell you, Brandon, that you know why I appreciate you? Because you're one of the few people that I can talk to and they say, you know what, I appreciate the MLS. Because Isaac, for example, who's not on here tonight, says, yeah, he's a Manchester United fan. He's like, yeah, I really don't care on watching MLS. I'm like, dude, give it a chance. Like, I promise you watch it. It's becoming a really exciting league to watch.
It's good TV. People miss that though. I mean, the entire opening week. I mean, Austin with 5 goals, Chicharito last minute win. I mean, these are like story and headlines in just 1 week of MLS. My apologies, MLS action. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
these are great storylines that you barely even see from like Premier League or whatever.
Exactly. I'm telling you, the league is really getting better as the seasons go on. So, like you said, Galaxy hosted the defending champions, New York City. I was very happy to see that the Golden Boot winner and their star player Tati Castellanos did not leave, and he stayed with New York City. Of course, Maxi Morales on the team. Uh, a new look Galaxy. I mean, they have Chicharito, but they lost a lot of pieces. They lost Sebastian Lletget, who went over to the New England Revolution. So did Josie Altidore, making the jump from Toronto to New England. And that was another game. Let me tell you, New England and Portland. Did you see Chara's goal? I mean, I sent you on Twitter. He had a bicycle kick. It was a
Yeah,
phenomenal match. Like
it,
Portland, New
it
England was a phenomenal match.
it was everywhere. Oh my goodness. I mean, on Twitter, IG, Snapchat, wherever you want to find it, that goal was everywhere. That was a hell of a game. And actually, speaking with Leggett, actually even scored in that one for New
Yeah.
England too. So I mean, if you missed out on that game, just know if you ever go see a game that's in Portland, the atmosphere is ridiculous.
Oh
The
yes.
atmosphere over there, every single game doesn't matter if it's week 15, week 1, week 17. The atmosphere is ridiculous over there in Portland. Uh, but another game I was really looking at is actually the one I mentioned before was the Austin game. I really can't believe that though. 5-0. I understand that Cincinnati is one of the bottom feeders for the East and looks like they're going to stay like that because right now they're 14th in the Eastern Conference at dead last to begin the year. Even though it's too early to say anything, but I mean they're just on a bad roll right now. 5 against an expansion team from last year. It's got to be rough. It's got to be rough.
Hey, let me tell you, Austin. I mean, they struggled last year as an expansion team, obvious, but their fans are the real deal. Let me tell you,
Oh,
especially
absolutely.
Matthew McConaughey over there in that stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. Their fans are the real deal, and we got our club from here from South Florida making a trip up to Austin for Sunday's match, and all I'm saying is it's not going to be a cakewalk for the Herons up there in Austin. It's going to be
Absolutely
tough,
not.
and especially
Absolutely.
5 past Cincinnati. Whew, it's not gonna be easy, man. It's gonna be tough for them.
No, yeah, but hey, I mean, for the Herons themselves, Inter Miami, I mean, they came out with a draw against Chicago, but I mean, I have to say though, there was a lot of people that didn't even expect us to win that game,
Yeah.
let alone to even draw with Chicago, even though it was a home game, first one of the year, with a whole new roster and cast for Inter Miami. So I think the Inter Miami, besides the fact that they didn't have a lot of possession in that game, I still feel like they could still win it off the defensive side because they look pretty solid, especially the backup goalkeeper for Inter Miami stepped up. I mean, some of the saves he made were just miraculous, though. I mean,
So
miraculous.
I was at the match, Brandon, and I can tell you, yes, the defense looks a little bit more solid than it did from last year, and especially with the goalkeeper Clement Diop. Um, it was pretty solid. I think that the reason why they did not lose that game was because of him.
Mm,
The factor for Chicago now, Chicago is a team last year that was at the bottom of the table. I think the only difference that they've had this year and why they had so many chances against Miami was one guy and one guy only, Swiss international Sheridan Shaqiri. Dude, that guy is. Let me tell you, he's like at least 5'4", but he is built like a tank, and you
oh
can
my
tell like
gosh.
as soon as he got on the ball, you can just tell the class. He knew the passes, where to send the ball, where the space for the through balls. He knew where to go, and that is why Chicago had so many chances. Granted, Chicago didn't play. I think both teams did not play well in that game.
No, of course not. Of course
Both
not.
did not play well. I think Chicago should have scored, um, just because they had so many chances that they just couldn't finish. So that's for Chicago. In terms of Miami, same thing. They had chances. They could have scored. We had the Ecuadorian Leonardo Campagna gets a through ball, gets right through the defense. Dude, right one on one with the goal of Chicago, who's Ukrainian, by the way. Um, one on one with the keeper. No one around him. Just him and the goalkeeper and the goal. This man kicked his foot instead of the ball. And the entire stadium, entire Drive Pink Stadium was like, "Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me!"
Only an Inter, man. Only an Inter. Oh
Yes,
my gosh. But I mean, we did had a chance too. I forgot who the player was for Inter Miami, but in the first half, I believe we had a header that hit the top of the crossbar that
yes,
almost came in though. And I honestly thought that early off, Inter Miami did look pretty solid with their new roster. They really did. I like the new roster. I think it's more of a team now than it is than
hmm
what it was last year, where it was a bunch of individuals trying to keep their name
yeah,
together. Like for example, I mean, Matuidi was obviously one name that we went after, and I mean, he's not even on roster this year anymore. So I think
nope.
that we're sacrificing now the big fish to make sure that we get at least some sort of product on the field. So, I mean, I'm being a little bit biased here, but I feel like this year we should probably make the playoffs. Though I feel, if not on the cusp of it, we should somehow make the playoffs. Of course, it's too early to tell, but I mean, I'm liking at least with a backup goalie and you know away from a lot of possession, which I mentioned before it looked like a pretty good showing for a team that was kind of like off a leg, if I had to say it like that.
Now let me tell you, I think the most exciting player that they have signed is not Robert Taylor from Finland. It's not Leonardo Campagna from Ecuador. It's not DeAndre Yedlin, a famous U.S. international. I think the best signing they've had, he's been the most exciting player. Which, you know what, in the game on Saturday, I did give him some crap too because he deserved it. Was Ariel Lassiter. He came
Mm.
over from the Houston Dynamo. The only reason why I gave him so much crap is because he had chances as well, but just couldn't finish. Is that every time he got the ball, he just had to do the little Cristiano Ronaldo step over every time he got the ball. And I'm like, maybe if you'd focus on finishing into the putting it in the back of the net and start doing your little step overs, maybe we'd be on the board by this point. But I think the team is not as bad as last year. I don't think we'll have such horrible defeats. Um, I think there will be defeats, not as bad. I just think that this team is very young right now.
Yeah.
Uh, and sadly for Inter Miami fans who are growing a bit frustrated because they've had to rebuild every single year that they've had in existence, um, it's going to take time. It really is going to take time to build this roster up. Um, I think I agree with you. I think that Inter Miami, if I would like this is my positive outlook. They make the playoffs, but I think they make the last two spots of the playoffs is on the border is where they get to. Um, and just take it from there and probably maybe a first round exit. It just depends on who gets hot at the right time or where they are in that point of the season if they mesh chemistry together. But I'm not expecting much from this squad, and especially the next 2 weeks are going to be extremely hard. Seeing the way that they played against Chicago team, who only had Shaqiri, a Chicago team that was at the bottom of the table last season, hasn't really changed as much. Seeing the way they played against them, that's an alarming thing going on this Sunday against an Austin team that put 5 goals on the board, and then you come back home to play LAFC, who has Carlos Vela, who scored a hat trick on the first game of the season. And then looming in the background is like 2 matchups against New England, a matchup against Seattle. So that's to me, that's a little scary. Showing up what we saw for the first game of the season, that's a little scary playing those teams early on in the season. To me, maybe they get a draw at one of those, but one of those New England games they get a draw. But those are some tough L's right there. Talking about Seattle and the LAFC, how they're looking starting off, and Austin, how they're looking starting off. This would be tough.
Yeah, plus not even that. I mean, the Western Conference in MLS is not as strong as the Eastern Conference in my opinion. But
Yeah,
I mean, from the teams you just mentioned there, those were probably the strongest players out there in the Western Conference. You know, I don't know how Inter Miami's going to make it out. Obviously, last year a lot of the fans were kind of disgusted with the
yeah,
games at home early off because they were always sold out, but Inter Miami wasn't winning a single home game. I
yeah.
think it was about if it was the 6th or 7th home game last year. I'm not too positive on the numbers, but that was their first ever win at home, the 6th or 7th one. To wait that long in MLS time, I mean that's like a couple months. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
that's a good month or so. So unless Inter Miami really does bring in a draw here and there against one of those top players in the MLS, and what I mean by players, I mean like players as in one of the best teams in MLS, then this Inter Miami fan base is probably gonna have a lot to suffer through early off in the year again.
And here's the problem. Like you said, first couple matches were sold out, but then as it progressed towards the end of the year, we ended up stadium being very empty. We
Hmm.
had fans leaving early, fans booing the team. I mean, I think people had it. I believe you were at that game. I think people just stopped like going to the games after New England came into Miami and put 5 on the
Yeah,
board at home. And I think that's when people were like, I'm not driving to Fort Lauderdale for this type of performance just to get freaking railed at home every game. Um, I hope that's not the case. I think it will be a little bit better this year because they've put somewhat of a better, decent squad together. It's a more, like you said, team atmosphere. But
yep,
early on in the schedule, man, I can't lie. Austin, LAFC, 2 New England games, Seattle Sounders. Those are hard, hard clubs to play against.
yeah. I mean, I'm gonna end this topic off here, but for the Inter games, as I said before, it feels more like a team now. But I mean, the fans have always been there as well too. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, because we were just talking about before prior to the podcast here, the stadium was kind of like shocked a little bit that they had ran out of a couple of items, either food in some of the club area, as well as parking was an issue again this year. But I mean, as a stadium as a whole, I mean they're progressing slowly though, and so is the team. So I feel that the more used to this club out of Fort Lauderdale, which calls itself Inter Miami, gets into year by year, I feel like we're going to see more and more product going to the team. I can't really say about the stadium though, but but at least the team I can say.
The vote is on March 9th. They need to get 4 out of 5 commissioners to say yes. One of them already said no. So that means they need to get 4 straight votes now. And if one of them says no, that's it. It's over. Um, and I think that's going to determine the fate of a lot of season ticket holders. And just the stadium issue, you brought that up. The problem is, and this just goes for sports franchise in general. Why do you think that the Dolphins, even though they've struggled, sell out every Sunday? Why do you think the Heat they sell out every game even on Wednesday night? Because those organizations know how to treat their fans. I'm not saying Inter Miami doesn't, but I mean, when you have these constant issues, especially now in year three, and especially for season ticket holders, you're already upset entering the stadium with all this, the crap that you just had to endure. And then you sit down, right? And you pay all this money, and then you get the type of product that you're getting on the field. Your overall customer service, your customer care, and your customer experience is not going to be good. The customers are not going to be happy. And it's on top of that, they drove all the way to Fort Lauderdale to experience this. So there's a lot of aspects, from on the field and off the field, that it's year three. Like you told me before the show started, it's year three. I think some of this stuff at this point is inexcusable, and it's stuff that they need to have down packed and done already.
Yeah, I mean, it's inexcusable as a venue at least.
Yes.
So, but I mean, as you did mention prior, though, with the committee, I mean, I don't know how long this team's going to stay in Fort Lauderdale, and if there is going to be plans for the future of Inter Miami going to be somewhere in Florida. Of course, they're talking about near the airport over there, international Miami. But I don't know, man. I mean, as a venue, they definitely got to get it together because Inter Miami is going to bring in more and more and more people, especially with the popularity that it's gaining.
Yeah, and look, Drive Pink Stadium is not bad. It's not bad for a temporary site. But the more and more other teams start getting more money, more expansion teams start coming into the league, you're going to start seeing these high class, world class training facilities and stadiums being built. Like, I mean, look at Nashville's new stadium this year, Austin's Q2 stadium. I mean, look at LAFC's Bank of California stadium. You look at that and you're like, wow, we got to step it up. Like, we need to get our own. We got to get our own facility very soon. We
No, yeah,
want to compete with the rest of the league.
no, yeah. I mean, look at Cincinnati.
Yeah,
You know what I
TQL
mean?
was amazing.
That's a beautiful stadium, and I'm not saying anything negative about the city of Cincinnati at all, right? Because Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, gotta love it. But I just gotta say it though, man. I mean, come on. If you gotta compete with Cincinnati, at least for a venue option for upcoming MLS, like, you know, I mean, whatever it could be, either that, an MLS team or bringing in fans and just, a venue comparison. I mean, Inter Miami should be ahead of them. The
Yeah,
location is too good to be so like bottom tier as a stadium though. It's just too good. I mean,
I
I know that we got a little bit off topic talking about the venue of Inter Miami, but of course as you know, supporters for the past 3 years and still gonna be supporting probably till the day we die. I mean, hopefully Inter Miami does get it together. But also before I also wanted to talk about really I thought was phenomenal though, especially for that hat trick that Vile got. I mean, LAFC coming off of him, penalty kick in the 29th minute, 35th minute, and a goal 50th minute. I mean, do you think that this is an early start that we could probably see for an MVP candidate? From week one, who do you think is probably the strongest person you think for MVP?
let me tell you, Brandon, from LAFC's history, I think this is their fourth, fifth year in the league. Carlos Vela and LAFC together have been competitive every single season, 4 or 5 years that they have been in the league. They have been competitive every year. They've been a hard team to play every year. Bank of California Stadium has been a hard place to play at every single year. They've got it done right up there in LAFC, especially having Will Ferrell as one of the owners. Can't go wrong with that. But they've got it right. In terms of Carlos Vela, the guy has been tearing up MLS ever since he's been in the league. I think that he'll definitely be up there. Other Mexican wonder boy Chicharito, I think will also be up there. His first year in the MLS with the Galaxy was not good, but
No.
then we see him come back last season. And remember, his first game was against Inter Miami. I believe he scored twice.
Oh
He
yes.
he scored twice, and then for the rest of the season, he went on a tear. So he scores the game winner, yesterday. I think he'll have another phenomenal year. He'll be up there with Carlos Vela, another player who won the MVP last year that I think you have to watch out for is from NYCFC, Tati Castellanos. That guy's a killer. Like you put Castellanos in the field, even in the final against the Portland Timbers, they were doubling him the entire match.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
that, that's another guy that you got to watch out for. Um, Joseph Martinez, coming back from injury for Atlanta United. Um, that's a guy you gotta watch out for always, who's always dangerous. But there's one person who scored yesterday and who had a very difficult 2021. Going through personal issues, divorce and stuff like that. He was in Toronto. He played for Orlando City, and he struggled mightily in Toronto. But he's with Atlanta now, and he scored. And I think he might go off to a mighty year. Is Dom Dwyer? Uh, Dom Dwyer in Orlando was a beast,
Mm,
and then unfortunately gets traded to Toronto. Um, gets into personal issues off the field. Going through a divorce. You can tell that his mind wasn't all there. You can tell that soccer wasn't the first priority in his life at the moment, and he was having to deal not only with a divorce but his kids, his how is he going to see his kids and whatnot. Um, he struggled all year long, but he's with a new club. He's with Atlanta, uh, and he scored in the first game, and I think he's someone to be up there. There's two last people I will mention who are internationally. I will say Shaqiri with Chicago, somebody to watch,
of
and
course.
somebody who's coming over. He did not start the season with MLS because he's playing in Europe. That at different times. But he's coming over once the European season is over, and he's signed with Toronto FC, and that is Lorenzo Insigne, who's coming over from Napoli. That is a guy that you are going to want to watch. And how did I almost forget? I forgot about the man who came from Bayern Munich, Douglas Costa, with the LA. So there's a
Yeah,
lot. I tell you, this league is super exciting. There's a lot of names that you got to watch. Even there's homegrown players in this league. I mean, just look at Aronson at Philadelphia. The goalkeepers. Look at Sean Johnson for NYCFC. Look
yeah,
at it's amazing. They got such good talent to watch.
yeah. I mean, as you said before, I mean, young talent. I mean, they had like a 17-year-old kid out of like Pembroke Pines for Inter Miami playing the other day.
Yes, Noah Allen.
So, and I believe also, I don't know if it was NYC that did this, but I believe they signed a 14-year-old, which is the youngest signing ever of MLS recently.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I still have doubts of NYC coming back this year,
Mhm.
I think the game that we saw in week one will just be a repetition of what we're going to see week by week with them. Because obviously, the Cinderella story of that last year playoff run and, of course, winning the cup. But I don't know, man. I mean, this is going to be an exciting year. That's all I can say. And especially with international talent coming in, I mean, it's probably going to be one of the more better years of MLS history, to be honest.
To end it, I will say though on NYCFC's run, um, I was there working at the Eastern Conference Final when they played the Philadelphia Union. I'm not taking away what they did. They went into New England and took out a New England team who earned the most points in an entire MLS history in a season. They took them out. Then they go into Philadelphia, who this is where I have the problem. Philadelphia, in my opinion, seeing them, I was there against when they played the Red Bulls in the first round. For me, Philadelphia was on their way to the final and probably would have won. But that Eastern Conference final against NYCFC, they didn't have Castellanos because he was suspended due to a red card against New England. But Philadelphia had half of their team out due to COVID. If Philadelphia would have had their full and healthy squad, I guarantee you that Philadelphia would have won the East and they would have been in the MLS Cup final. I know
Mm,
we sit here
that
and
that
said should have, could have, but that's what I think.
I mean, that's a really huge if, though. That's a really huge if you ask
Yeah.
me, though. Because that New York team was on fire, man. But Philadelphia, the full roster, I don't know. I mean, that's got that's got to be up for a huge discussion, at least in Major League Soccer, though. That's a huge if. I'll give you that.
So, in the last 10 minutes that we have tonight, we want to discuss something. I woke up and I saw the news and I'm like, what the hell happened? Uh, Derek Jeter steps down as the CEO of the Marlins, not even keeping his stock or share in the team, gets rid of that as well. And I just started reading. I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, this came out of left field. Like, no one was expecting this to happen. There was Marlins veteran players like, Miguel Rojas and Sandy Alcantara who were like surprised and shocked. They found out like us too. They're like, we didn't know anything that this was gonna happen. So we found out the same way you did. Um, what I read was Derek Jeter had different plans and ideas for the team uh, compared to ownership. Um, one of the reasons cited was the Marlins were not willing to open their pocketbook and didn't really care on being competitive. And this all ties in, Brandon, to what we were talking about. Organization and fan bases. Like, look, the Marlins have stepped it up. Their content, their social media, the club in general, it's stepped it up. Don't get me wrong. In the last 2 years, but what's gonna grab and the fans have appreciated that, but what's gonna grab people to go to games and be in the stadium is your product and performance on the field. Um, and this is already a fan base that's frustrated with what the last 10 years has been like for the Marlins. So if they can't get that done, they're going to struggle to get, their fans into that beautiful stadium. But it's unfortunate for Jeter, just to jump on. Well, you know what? There's
I
both sides. There's two sides to the story.
I really don't care about Jeter, man. Honestly, I am so happy with this news. As crazy as it is, it's like a Christmas gift in spring because there's no way on earth. I mean, especially the first month that Jeter was CEO. I mean,
Yeah,
the standing move was understandable, but then you get rid of Yelich, D. Gordon, Azuna, which is like basically your entire all-star, outfielders, and even Real Muto coming out to do this rebuild. I mean, the Jeter era is going to be known for Brinson getting rid of the home run structure and putting it outside like an attraction, which I
yeah,
thought was probably the best thing about the stadium at the time, especially if you watch back some highlights of the World Classic in 2017.
yeah.
But I don't know, man. If you ask me, Jeter can say whatever he wants, like, oh, I didn't feel like the team was going the right way, players, money. If you ask me, I just feel like he was just Mr. October for the Yankees getting standing over there in New York. Uh, Probably the best prospect he came out was probably Brinson. And that's just, I mean, that's saying something, you know what I mean? But honestly, I mean, good riddance to Jeter. I feel like we have a great GM right now, currently still. I feel like the
Mhm.
Marlins, I mean, as you did say before, it's all about, teams being a little bit, not caring much about the talent that's on the field or not competing. How, Mr. Ross and the Miami Dolphins has been mediocre for the past few years. And as I'm a strong advocate against Ross just
Yeah.
because of what he's doing around that Miami stadium. But for the Marlins standpoint, I mean, as a fellow Marlin fan, I can't really speak for everyone from the fan base. I am glad to see that there might be some change coming to Miami though, and hopefully in a good way.
Well, from what I've heard is that he was a little upset that the GM, who she's wonderful, had a lot of authority and a lot of rule over decisions being made. That he was a little bothered by that, and over the last couple of months, his relationship with people in the team became distant and almost non-existent. Um, so it was like he wasn't really a part of it anymore. And then just this morning, just decides to be like, "Hey, I no longer want to be your CEO or shareholder, and I'm done here." Uh, like from my perspective, and this is my opinion, I'm going to agree with you. Yeah, they got Lewis Brinson. I will say yes, the team got better than what it was like 2 or 3 years ago because it was really bad 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, no question.
But it's not the promise that he had when he first got here. I mean, the man had a whole, meeting with town residents, and he got chewed up alive at that meeting, that town residents. But that just goes to show you that a man who's not from this community with a shit ton of money can come call in a town meeting and talk some big game to people and impress people and then not deliver on his promises. It's almost like a politician.
Yep.
Um, and it just goes into tying why people and politicians in Miami are so skeptical about when these owners come into town with these ideas for stadiums and sport franchises because they know a lot of times they just come in here, talk some game to get what they want, but they don't deliver on their promise. And that is to ultimately make the team a world championship caliber team.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna put my bid right now. I want to see Marlon Man as the next CEO. And if for those viewers that don't know, there's a guy that's basically has been in every single major sports, televised history ever, NBA Finals, World Series, always repping the Marlins, in the orange. I have to say OG because it's not
Yeah.
the current jersey, but in the OG orange, Miami Marlins. I'm telling you, man. I mean, he's gonna be the right guy. He's gonna set us off if he ends up taking over the team because I think he's like an attorney or something like that. I'm not too positive.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so I don't know what type of money he has, but hey, if you're watching right now on the pod, I mean, shoot me a DM, shoot Daniel DM. We could be like some co-owners. We'll figure something out for the investors. We'll bring great success to the Marlins. And speaking of which, we're also gonna bring back the home run sculpture back inside the stadium. That needs to happen.
Brandon, I don't think they'd like me as an owner. I mean, you already know I'm the guy that if you lose one game, like if you win one game, if you win a regular season game, you're not getting any congratulations from me. We already went over this. We already went over that. Yeah, you win one regular season game, you're not getting any sort. But that's why you're there, bro. You want to go pat them on the back and give them orange slices at halftime or seventh inning stretch. You go ahead and do that, but I ain't doing it.
No, yeah,
You get
exactly. If,
you
you know
get
what it'll
paid
be like?
for regular season
You know what it'll
games.
be like? It'll be like a Kraft and Belichick relationship, right? You'll come in, it'll be like professional, like, oh, great win, great job, on to Cincinnati, no problem. And then I'll be like Robert Kraft coming in, patting guys on the back, and as long as we get those rings in the trophy case, that's all that matters. But at the end of the day, you got to show a little bit of a champagne shower for at least a home win because God knows how rare that is at Marlins Park, which I still can't call it Lone Depot Park for the life of me. I still can't call it that.
Hey, let me tell you, what's bad when the highest attendance in that stadium is for a Kanye concert and not for a Marley. Like that's when you know, man. It's sad because it's a beautiful stadium,
It
but
is.
you get more people from the other team enter that stadium. You guys know I'm a Dodgers fan, but when the Dodgers were there, I was sitting there. Let me tell you, I had my beer in my hand, Brandon, and I was looking
Mhm.
around, and I was like, "Shit, are we at Dodger Stadium right now?" I'm like,
Yeah,
"Damn,
it
I
it
thought I
just
was in LA."
happens. Yeah, and the crazy thing about it, I mean, if you ever come visit Marlins Stadium or Lone Depot Park during the year, it really is vacant. It's
Yeah,
like 25% filled. I mean, the last Marlins game I went to when I was down there, I had a whole tour of the stadium. You know what I mean? I got to my seats in the 300 section, and then I walked all the way down to third base, walked behind the home plate. You can basically walk wherever you want by the fourth inning. I mean, I'm praying that besides opening day, we start selling out some games in the future. But I mean, who knows when that's going to be?
shit, might as well, bro. You can take a tour if you want to go fifth inning. You want to throw out some pitches. You can do that as well. Get on the field to get some autographs in the middle of the game. They let you do anything over there nowadays, man. I mean,
Yeah,
as
and
long as you're there.
yeah, and don't forget to go see the world famous bobblehead display. You
Yeah, the
know, it
bobblehead display.
yeah, definitely a lot of action there compared to the field. So, you know, if you want to go see it.
You can, yeah, you try up there and see the bobbleheads with your $15 beer. And it's a fantastic time. Let me tell you, if you go in for a first date, it's a great time to converse because there's not much action going on in the field. So you really get to know a person for the next 4 or 5 hours there.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's all we have for tonight, guys. Again, from Brandon, myself, and the rest of the Plug Talk Sports team, really appreciate you guys coming on here every Monday night, showing us love on social medias. Don't forget our website. Brandon writes fantastic articles. He's writing another one this week. I'm writing one, and the entire team is. So don't forget to go on there and check out our website. And we'll be back next Monday for another Plug Talk Sports episode. Hope everyone has a good night and rest of the week.